I was gonna rip his heart out. I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me. Lynx is a conqueror. No, I'm Alexander. He's no Alexander. I'm the best ever. There's never been anybody ruthless. I'm Sonny Liston. I'm Jack Dempsey. There's no one like me. I'm from Nairclaw. There's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous. My defense is impregnable. And I'm just ferocious. I want your heart. I want to eat your children. Praise be to Allah.
He was called the baddest man on the planet for his incredible punching power and aggressive fighting style. His speed, strength, and vicious aggression earned him the title of the youngest world heavyweight champion in 1986. He is Iron Mike Tyson. Today, we will show you all of the most brutal and aggressive knockouts of the legendary Iron Mike. Mike Tyson made his professional debut on March 6, 1985, against Puerto Rican Hector Mercedes.
Swinging hooks to the body from Tyson, and if that is it in round one, that is
Mike Tyson versus Trent Singleton.
and he's just a perpetual motion machine so far. This isn't going to go too long. Trent Singleton in all sorts of trouble. We're already in round one. The Mike Tyson, the young fledgling professional.
Mike Tyson versus Don Helton.
Can Tyson finish this? I think so. I think so. That's enough. Now that last right hander.
Mike Tyson versus Ricardo Spain.
Tyson absolutely destroyed him there.
Mike Tyson versus John Alderson.
All right. There's a good straight right hand by Mike Tyson. That sent Alderson down.
Mike Tyson versus Lorenzo Kennedy.
Right, when he saw that last right hand land, he could just feel the fact that Kennedy would be sagging to the canvas. Boy, Mike Tyson is powerful, huh? Oh, wow. Mike Tyson barely built up a sweat, but you know he was warm and ready. He came out fired up. It is 7-0 with 7 knockouts.
Mike Tyson versus Michael Johnson. Mike Tyson versus Donnie Long. Mike Tyson versus Robert Collet. Mike Tyson versus Sterling Benjamin. Mike Tyson versus Eddie Richardson. Mike Tyson versus Conroy Nelson.
Right, taking him out with a vicious left hand. Knocking him out 30 seconds of the round.
Mike Tyson versus Sammy Scaff. Mike Tyson versus Mark Young. Mike Tyson versus David Jaco. Mike Tyson versus Mike Jamison.
Cortez says no. Jamison says he wants to go on, but the referee, Joe Cortez, says it is over here in the fifth.
Mike Tyson versus Jesse Ferguson. This fight was supposed to show that Mike Tyson was a serious contender for the world title. Mike Tyson versus Steve Zowski. Mike Tyson versus Reggie Gross.
You can't even walk. You worry about fighting blue eyes. Come on.
Mike Tyson versus William Hosea. Mike Tyson versus Lorenzo Boyd.
The count is 5. The count is 6. The count is 8. He will not get up. It's over. Sam, show me that heavyweight. Over the heavyweights, we can...
Mike Tyson versus Marvis Frazier.
Tyson goes over to take a look at Marvin Frazier, obviously quite concerned. A terrific uppercut. The same punch with which Tyson knocked out Jesse Ferguson the first time you saw him here on ABC Sports. Watch the uppercut, the right uppercut.
Mike Tyson versus Jose Ribalta. Mike Tyson versus Alfonso Ratliff.
Tyson has left them down about that so far. Right hand, that should be just about it. Davey Crow looking very closely. And that's all. It's over. That incidentally is a much more important fight for Tyson.
Mike Tyson versus Trevor Berbick. At 20 years, 4 months, and 22 days, Mike Tyson with this victory became the youngest world champion in the history of boxing, surpassing Floyd Patterson. It was not just a duel, it was a total destruction of Trevor Berbick. Mike Tyson versus Pinklin Thomas. Mike Tyson versus Tyrell Biggs. Tyson throws a hard, short left strike to Tyrell's temple. Tyrell Biggs falls out of the ropes. His face is covered with blood, but he still manages to get up to the count of 9 and decides to continue the fight. Breaking the distance a little, Tyson thrust another left side to the jaw. The blow was the last for Tyrell Biggs. Mike Tyson versus Larry Holmes.
An undefeated champion with
Mike Tyson versus Tony Tubbs.
Fight is over with stunning swiftness. And the fans are enjoying.
Mike Tyson versus Michael Spinks. This fight attracted a huge public interest and was named Once and For All by the promoters. The winner left the ring as the absolute and unconditional champion. Such an event had not happened since 1971, when two undefeated champions, Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali, had met in the ring. Mike Tyson versus Frank Bruno.
Shake hands, good luck.
The 6th round. After a pause, Mike throws 2 blows to the head on the right and left. Then a second later, he punches his famous combination of a right hook to the body and a right uppercut to the head. Frank Bruno is absolutely lost and practically does not react to the blows. Another right uppercut and then a left hook, and the referee decides to stop the fight. Mike Tyson versus Carl Williams. This fight only lasted 93 seconds, and it also became Tyson's second fastest title fight. In the middle of the first round, Williams tries to hit Tyson with a left jab. Tyson parried and hit Williams with a left hook, which threw Williams back to the rope. Mike Tyson versus Henry Tillman.
The over-under is 2.5.
Just 25 seconds before the end of the first round, Tyson drove Tillman into a corner. Tillman tried to fight back, but Tyson responded with a strong right hook, and Tillman fell onto the canvas. A clear knockout. Mike Tyson versus Alex Stewart. Mike Tyson versus Donovan Ruddock. The 7th round. The fight was coming to an end. Tyson was able to hit Ruddock with a combination of 6 blows. Although Ruddock remained on his feet and looked healthy enough to continue the fight, the referee stopped the match. Mike Tyson versus Peter McNeely. In the middle of the round, Tyson made a successful attack and sent McNeely to the canvas with a right uppercut. Mike Tyson versus Buster Mathis Jr. Just 40 seconds before the end of the third round, Tyson was able to inflict successive right uppercuts that threw Mathis to the canvas. Mike Tyson versus Frank Bruno. Less than a minute after the start of the third round, Tyson dodged Bruno's jab and made a combination of 13 blows, as a result of which the referee stopped the fight. Mike Tyson versus Bruce Seldon. In the middle of the first round, Seldon was knocked down with a left hook thrown by Tyson, which was immediately followed by a right cross that further hurt Seldon. Seldon got up at the count of 8 and resumed the fight, but was almost immediately knocked out by another left hook. Mike Tyson versus Francois Botha. At the end of the 5th round, Tyson sent his opponent to the canvas with a right cross to the chin. Botha got up to the count of 10, but immediately fell onto the ropes. The referee announced a knockout. Mike Tyson versus Julius Francis. Mike Tyson versus Lou Savarese.
Yes, it's over. It's over. He stopped it, Steve. You know what? He stopped it, but he didn't do it definitively.
Mike Tyson versus Brian Nielsen. Mike Tyson versus Clifford Etienne. At the beginning of the first round, Tyson missed with his left hook, but he immediately threw out a right hook, and as a result, Etienne was on the canvas.
Rip his heart out. I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me. Lynx is